Welcome to Talk to Brazil with Tom Rioch, the business connector to business in Brazil. Welcome to Talk to Brazil, the Business Connection, the world's first English language internet radio program about business in Brazil and now in podcast format. I'm Tom Rioch, an American in Brazil, talking from my studio in Campinas, the state of São Paulo. Today's guest is Vanessa Puerta. She's with us again and talking from her home office in São Paulo. Vanessa Puerta is an intercultural consultant and organizational communication professional with over 20 years of experience in multinational companies. So with that, Vanessa, welcome again to Talk to Brazil.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm very glad to be back again.
Now, it's always good to talk to you because besides talking, we've also crossed paths several times in different events here in Campinas regarding international business. So it's always good to have you on. And the last time we talked about business here on Talk to Brazil and intercultural communication, you talked about the differences and how to understand Brazilian habits in communicating, right? But today, I want to talk about the business outlook for 2020. And from what I've seen and some of the information that we've shared, it looks very positive with right now, a forecasted growth of about 2.5% of the GDP. And it seems to be many opportunities in Brazil for foreign companies. What are the signs that you see?
Well, we're very optimistic for 2020 because Brazil is going on a new era for investors and for competitiveness and innovation. So, Brazilians are entrepreneurs themselves. So they're now looking for more professional work, and also they are very focused on doing their business, and that's very, very good for us.
Now, and it seems that one of the drivers from the information we've seen is civil construction. That seems to be taking off again because of the very low inflation rate we've seen this last year. Also, interest rates have dropped significantly. That's opened up a whole new, let's say, source of money that's being directed back into the civil construction. Do you see that?
Yes. Infrastructure in Brazil is still a gap. So there are many opportunities in ports, airports, rails, also, rivers, transportation through rivers, waterways, I think it's called. And there's lots of opportunities in this. And also real estate. Real estate is coming back again it's very strong. Here in São Paulo, we see every corner, every street, new buildings coming up. A more modern architecture in a new way of living, right. Smaller spaces with more common areas so people can have that co-working space in the building, so sharing spaces. And also as you said, interest taxes are getting lower.
Interest rates.
Interest rate.
Right.
So are getting lower, so people now can invest in their own housing, and that's really it's a driver for our economy. When construction work, civil engineering is going up, construction is going up.
Right.
It's an indicator that things are getting better again here. So that's a good sign.
And I agree with you because you can actually see that, and we're talking about urban mobility. And many of the buildings, as you mentioned, they're smaller sized, maybe single-room units or one-bedroom units, and most of them seem to be being built along the subway, the metro corridors, the rapid transit corridors. So people want to live well, but want to live and be able to get to where they work faster or closer, and that maybe even be walking. Right, the more people are walking or taking the different urban connections. And even though there still are a lot of automobiles in São Paulo, there are more people, riding bikes, riding scooters, walking, and wanting to be close.
Yes, that's true, because our mobility system here in São Paulo is really difficult. And also people want to be more sustainable as well. They want to be healthier. They want to walk. They want to see other people. And also these other platforms like Uber or 99 taxis that people can easily get to other places.
Right.
So now mobility and being closer to where they work brings more quality. And also because we say people are have flexible working hours, but we know that people stay longer or have to visit clients or working in co-working places. So people need to be connected. So that's why they need to be close and they can live in a smaller area, but in a smaller apartment, and then we have all this mobility. That's important. Also, people who want to invest in like Airbnb, they can have this other apartments. This is moving the economy as well.
Now, one thing I want to mention to our listeners, Vanessa, and I know you're very active. This also falls into the category of opportunities in Brazil. You're very active in programs to help educate, or maybe re-educate might be the word, of refugees coming to Brazil. Brazil is I'm saying that from my point of view, it's a pretty open-armed, welcoming refugees, right, across the board. And more recently, I've seen that over 21,000 Venezuelan refugees were given special consideration. So there is a large contingent of refugees here, and specifically in the state of São Paulo, in the city of São Paulo. But I've seen that you're active in training programs. What exactly do you do to help include them?
Well, I am member of the board for CETAR Brazil, which is the Society for Intercultural Education and Training and Research. And we are a group of interculturalists working to help all these cultures to communicate better, especially here in Brazil, but it's a global network. And CETA Brazil partners with Missão Paz, which is a Catholic church, part of the Scalibrian division. And they receive and refugees and migrants, and CETA supports telling. We have some speakers who tell immigrants what they are going to find, because they have this adaptation period, this cultural shock when they arrive. They come from
I've gone through that myself when I arrived, so I have to say I understand cultural shock in Brazil.
And they come. It takes them days or weeks to get here to São Paulo, and they're very excited about and enthusiastic. And then sometimes things are not the way they are expecting. So we tell them how things are, how work is here in Brazil. And you're right. In Brazil is very open to migrants, that refugees, all the documents they need when they get their CPF, and everything is it's easy for them. They don't have, not easy, but they don't face so many issues as other countries. But when they are going to find a job, then it's a little bit more difficult, because we still have a high unemployment rates at this moment. So even for Brazilians, we don't have available jobs. So it's difficult for them. So we tell them that sometimes it may take a while, but be patient. Meet new people, find a Brazilian soccer team that you can talk to anyone if you know about soccer, and learn about Brazilian culture. And then we tell them...
And learn the language, right? Because again, as we see, only 3% of the Brazilian population speaks English. So anyone coming here, you really need to learn the language.
That's true. And they know, like people who come from Haiti, they know French, English, their local language. So they know some of them lived in República Dominicana, for example. They know Spanish, and then they need to learn Portuguese. Even people who come from Angola, they also speak Portuguese, but it's they have different accent, different way of using the language.
That's why I say Portuguese from Portugal. sort of like the difference of English from the United States and English from the United Kingdom. Word usage and the way you use it is different. So
that's true. That's true.
now
And then,
back to that, but even considering the education or the language challenge, and what I've seen even in here in the Campinas region, in daily activities, many of these immigrants and refugees, some of them are very highly skilled persons.
yes, that's true. They are. They have professional experience. They've been to university. They are graduated, but then for them to validate their certificates and diplomas here, then it's more difficult, and it takes time. It's a bureaucratic process. I saw one university in the Northeast. They were having a program to make it easy to facilitate this process, but it's not all universities. And then they need to go to the job they find, more operational jobs,
Right.
until they can validate and work in their areas. But they are very high skilled. They know computers very well. They know softwares. Some of them are doctors or lawyers. Yesterday I was there at Missão Paz. I met a chemical engineer. So they have they're high skilled and they are willing to work because they want to build their life here in Brazil.
Right.
They are very motivated and well they built their Brazilian representation watching soap operas or watching media that came from Brazil. And when they come here, they see that we don't live like the life in the soap operas. Yes, there's poverty, there are people on the streets, there is unemployment. So they need to keep focused,
Right.
and try to understand all this culture and this dynamic environment that we are, and build their life here. So most of them left their families behind, so they dream of seeing their families or sending back money. I think with all this optimistic scenario for 2020, it will be better for everyone, Brazilians or migrants that chose our country to come.
No, we see that happening, and back to the inclusive environment and let's say the friendly atmosphere created by Brazilians, because Brazilians are friendly, they're open, they're very emotional people. And we can see that happening. And tying that together with the opportunities and growth this coming year, it's also a driver. You talked about the unemployment on the Brazilian side. That's also, I see, as an incentive for Brazilians to keep learning, to go back to school, to fine-tune their skill set. Because many of the persons who are unemployed in Brazil, they need to update their skill set. You talked about innovation, competitiveness. That's across the board. And what we see, and I see that here in the Campinas region, many companies still have openings and still have some difficulty in finding specific persons to be working. And that gets back to the skill set of learning and even learning a language. So English is important in any aspect of any business today.
Yes, that's true. And also, Spanish, because we are in Latin America. And I think, there are many opportunities for growth. Brazilians have this entrepreneur spirit, so they are always willing to learn and innovate, invent other things. They're very creative.
Right.
Well, so for example, competitiveness in the government, things are being more. They are investing in getting digitalized, more services getting digitalized.
Right.
Just 400 services are digitalized. Also, area of we have 11 unicorn companies, so that makes us one of in the top list of unicorn companies. And every time we have new platforms and new services that come that we never imagined before. Yeah,
that's true. That's very true.
Yeah, and also in the area of energy, we have so much space for clean energy, solar or wind energy. We are a huge country. We can help the world in the supply of energy, and also agribusiness, because we are 7 billion people in the world, and by 2050 will be more than 9 billion.
Right. No,
So
we're almost,
it's not-
we will very soon, we will reach 8 billion people.
Mhm.
We're talking about 7, but we've passed 7 a long time ago. And every day we're getting closer to 8 billion people in this world. So, and in the agriculture, I agree with you. Brazil is and will be the main focus, and that's where many companies are coming and lots of investments coming in the agricultural sector.
Yeah, we have great climatic conditions. We have sunlight because we're a tropical country. We have land and water resources like rivers, lakes, and a diversity of climates, soils, and biomes. So we have all the favorable conditions to be a leader in agriculture.
And I think that's
agribusiness.
an important point to make to our international listeners, even persons with experience in agriculture, because many times they may not be aware. Brazil is one of maybe the only, but I'm going to say it's one of the few locations in the world. And here we have, during the course of a year, 3 harvests, which is very rare. Some places you can have a second harvest. But here you have 3 harvests, so it's basically, production of food, of protein, 24/7.
Yes, that's true. That's true because of all these favorable conditions. What we need is more investment in infrastructure. Yeah, how to in ports and rails that can support all this agribusiness. And now with the AG fintechs, people are getting more innovative ways of supporting this business. So I see that we can be a leader soon if we have investments in this area.
Well, and the infrastructure for our listeners, it's not only going to be for the agricultural sector, even though that's important. The infrastructure is across the board for everything. You're talking about airports, ports, railway systems, all of that melts together for growth in all of the areas.
Yes, especially also in telecommunications and internet, because we have more than a lot of people in Brazil. Everyone has a mobile phone. You connected to the internet all the time. So we have a big market on that. And our structure for telecommunication also needs investment and modernization. So I think all areas from infrastructure to this telecommunication structure and energy, we will need to be prepared for this growth that is coming, because growth is coming. Companies and international investors are coming. We have a huge consumer market here. Even C and D classes are connected to the internet, buying through mobile phones, using banks through the cell phone. Brazilians were very concerned about using.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, buying through the internet. People didn't have the trust to buy through the internet or to use banks to the cell phone. And now everything is changing. So we need, all the companies need to be prepared, and we need to be, and the country itself needs to be responsive to these demands.
Well, you brought up a point, and I think that's important. We're talking about the cell phones, the infrastructure, communication, fintechs, all of this. Do you see that? I've seen that with unemployed persons here throughout Brazil. What they do have, what they all seem to have, is a smartphone. And they realize they need access, and as you said, as the government becomes more digitalized, everything is online. Here, our intercity bus system, or the local bus system, all has Wi-Fi. So you see many people just sitting on the bus, and they have access to Wi-Fi, and they have access to communication. Does that happen very quickly with the refugees? Is that the same thing?
Yes, they all have cell phones and mobiles to talk to their families. But also another thing, you need to have a cell phone, because now your how it's called, the card that allows you to work in Portuguese is carteira de trabalho.
Yeah,
now it's online.
A working permit. It's all online, right?
It's all online. So before we had that booklet
Right.
that the employers
I still
sell.
have mine. I still have mine in a
Yeah,
drawer here.
I do have mine. It's going now to the museum because now they don't have, they have everything online and their CPF is online, everything is online. So you need to have a cell phone. If even to park a car, you need a cell phone because now the system to pay the city hall is through the cell phone.
Everything.
So you need to have a cell phone with a internet package because on the street you need.
Well, I think
So
we're gonna see very shortly the children being born in Brazil or in the world are going to be born with a cell phone, I think, or an internet connection. So that seems
I
to be
think,
the way it's going, right?
yes, before they can talk or walk, they already can use the cell phone.
Right. Well, Vanessa, I want to thank you. We're coming to the end of our time today, but it's always an enjoyment talking with you. And I want to have you back because there are other areas of expertise that I want to go over with you. So we're going to be having you back shortly to talk again, okay?
Great. Thank you, Tom, for the invitation. And thank you for this nice conversation again. So it's always great to exchange ideas and learn from you too. And wish you and everyone who is hearing to us a very happy new year and with lots of great news and achievements for 2020. Our third decade already. We are in the third decade of this century.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you too, Vanessa. And we'll be back talking. All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And thanks for sharing your time with our listeners. And I want to thank our audience and remind everyone that today's program was brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence. They're specialists in the market research for the Brazilian agricultural market. More about them on their website, focusmi.com. And also would like to invite you to visit our website, www.talktobrazil, that's TALK, the number 2, BRAZIL.com, and find this and previous shows. Remember, when you talk to Tom, you talk to Brazil and the world. Goodbye, and thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to Tom Rioch on Talk to Brazil, the business connector to Brazil.